Again, good evening, everyone. Before we begin, please note that the views and opinions expressed by the candidates are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the National Coalition of Legal Women, Inc., Queens County Section, or our partners. The purpose of tonight's program is to force an open and engaging discussion for the 2025 New York City Mayoral Candidates, and we appreciate the diverse perspectives each speaker brings to the table. Most importantly, this program is meant to be constructive. Therefore, we kindly ask that all attendees remain respectful throughout the evening. Any disruptive or disrespectful behavior will not be tolerated, and if necessary, individuals may be asked to leave. Thank you for your cooperation. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Black Spectrum Theater. My name is Carrie Ann, and I'm your house manager for the evening. I'll step away from the podium because I have some very important information for you. So, while we're here in the theater, I would love for you to know that there should be no eating, drinking while we're here. Additionally, we're going to ask you to refrain from smoking or vaping while you're in the building. It's prohibited law here in New York, and it's also applicable here at this theater. We're going to also ask you to observe the exit signs that are around you. Please take a moment. For those of us who are facing me on this side of the stage, my right, your left, may I see your hand in the air? Your perfect, perfect. I'm going to ask you your left hand in the air, everyone on this side. Left hand. Beautiful. Please point to the exit sign. In case there's an emergency and we need to evacuate this building, we're going to ask you to kindly use the exit door, make a right, and head on to the outside. For those of us who are in the middle here of the theater, may I see both hands in the air? Lean back. Beautiful, beautiful. Now you know where to go. Right behind you, through the doors that you came in, and down the stairs to the outside. And everyone on my left, which is your right, may I see your hand waving in the air like you care? Beautiful. Please observe the exit signs as well. This one in particular, not the one, not the second one, but the first one. You go through those doors, make a left, and head on downstairs. Is that clear? Yes. Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Do enjoy the rest of the evening. Can I ask Mr. Clay to please come to the stage?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And welcome to Black Spectrum Theater. My name is Carl Clay. I'm the founder and director of Black Spectrum. And next to me, Mr. Everett Hopkins, the chairman of our board. We are so happy to help sponsor this event with NCNW. And we just are totally behind this idea of community coming together to have challenging talks about what's going on in our community. How many of you have been here before? Raise your hands. Okay, how many of you have never been here before? Raise your hands. And of course, my favorite question, how many of you have never been anywhere before in your life? There's always a few people. Again, we welcome you to Black Spectrum. We are celebrating our 56th year of operation. Okay? Our season begins this Saturday with Ayanna Gregory, the daughter of Dick Gregory, and she's presenting a show called Daughters of the Struggle. You should come out, at 2 o'clock. And then next week, we present a program that we're very proud of. It's called History Park. The sponsor of that event and that program is Congressman Gregory Meeks, and it is about pivotal moments in African American history. These are reenactments that take place. So we're really proud of that. It's a free program. We have flyers and information about all the wonderful things we're doing this season.
Thank you, Carl. Once again, I'd just like to welcome you. I won't repeat all the great things Carl said, but just know, come back to see us again. A lot of great stuff happens in this room, like I'm sure will happen tonight. But I'd also like to welcome all of those who are part of the Divine Nine. As an alpha man myself, it's always good to see you all, welcome you all. We always support you. We ask that you support us, and let's have a great night. Thank you.
There's 3 mics up here. Okay, so good evening and welcome to the Fireside Chat Mayoral Candidates event. My name is Soleil Griffin Green. I am married now. I'm the chair of Social Justice Committee, and I would like to present to you our Madam President, Shakina Black.
Welcome, family. I always call people family because we're all family. So welcome for coming out today. NCNW is celebrating its 90th year this year. So, yes. So we are very proud to have this going on for so long. Our founder, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, said this was going to be an organization of organizations, and that our mission would be and continues to be to provide for the African American women, children, families, and community. So we are proud to be here tonight so that we are actually celebrating in her honor. We are actually doing exactly what she asked. We are showing that we are an organization of organizations as we come together tonight. Well, firstly, we just have to make sure you know that we are certainly a nonprofit organization, so we are nonpartisan. The views, as they said earlier, are that of the candidates. So we are not supporting any candidate in particular. We want to make sure your voices are heard, that they hear what you have to say, and they take that information and move forward. Your questions were submitted prior to tonight, so there will be no questioning during tonight's event. We have those questions already, and hopefully most of those questions will be answered by the candidates you see tonight. When we have these type of events, many of you may know that we've been working on this since before June, and everybody was invited. So if someone does not come, it is not on you, it is not on us, but it is on them. It is their responsibility to be here tonight to let you know what they stand for. So if they're not here, you need to call them to task. Okay? At this time, I just would like to, again, thank everyone for being here. I want to thank our partners. We have many, like I said, we show that we're an organization of organizations. We're all here together. This event is because all of us joined together. So I'm asking all of our partners to please stand. look how many partners we have. Malcolm X said, we are not outnumbered, we are out-organized. Okay? We want to change that. Right? Starting now. So we want to show that we are organized and we are going to continue to be more organized as we move forward. So thank you for being here again. And at this point, I'd like to turn this over to our hardworking co-chair of the Social Justice Committee, Janice Welch.
So unfortunately, former Governor Cuomo will not be able to join us this evening. However, he did send us a message.
Your Wednesday?
Tonight is the chat we're having
Well, I am a Queens boy. I know Southeast Queens very well. I know Rochester Village very well. I know the issues are happening. I'm going to be here for you. It is my backyard. Frankly, I have a way of close friends who passed away. And I've been there for half of the 30 years. Otherwise, I need it. But I'll be back. Thank you. Thank you.
So, just in case you weren't able to hear it, so former Governor Cuomo had experienced a death from his dearest friend who was battling with something that was very hard for him at the time, so he passed. So he's at that person's wake at this moment. But he did say that he would be here. He had to clear his schedule for the rest of the day just to be with his friend. So we're just giving him the courtesy and the condolences, but he did say that this is his backyard and he will be here to support us in any way. So this is not the sad point, this is just the beginning. So again, he will make a come up for us.
Our moderator for this evening is Ms. Cheryl Wills, Emmy Award-winning journalist from New York, who is celebrating her 33rd year at the station. She has been with New York One since its launch in 1992. You can watch Cheryl every night starting at 8 p.m. during her primetime newscast, New York Tonight, and every Sunday she hosts a public affairs program called In Focus with Cheryl Wills. Wills has become a familiar and trusted voice in New York City, known for her insightful reporting and compelling interviews. Her work has often focuses on local politics, community issues, and the rich history of our city. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our moderator, Ms. Cheryl Wills.
Everybody. Good evening. All right, I'm supposed to be at work right now, but listen, when Queens calls, I'm a Queens girl, born and bred. I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to be here for you because, as you all know, this election is about 5 weeks away, and it has become a pivotal moment for New Yorkers, especially the great borough of Queens. And the policies and priorities that will be set by the next mayor will have a direct impact on issues ranging from affordable housing and equitable education. I repeat, equitable education to accessible health care, and public safety. This evening, we're going to talk to candidates about these issues so you, the voter, can learn more about their visions and strategic framework that will guide New York City through its next critical chapter. And as you all know, the stakes couldn't be higher this time around. So please join me in welcoming our first candidate, Dr. Selma Bartholomew, to the stage. Bartholomew, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. And I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself. You have a minute to introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you so much, Cheryl Wills. I am Dr. Selma Bartholomew, and I know most of you may be thinking, what kind of doctor are you? And why haven't you seen me before? And so I have a PhD in leadership and policy from Fordham University. I have 2 master's degrees, one from Adelphi University, another one from Fordham. I have a bachelor's in mathematics and physics, and I also have an ABD in pure mathematics. And so I am an entrepreneur, and I'm also a mom. And in 2008, I started my business in education after a very full career. I had taught everyone from high school. I taught at Fordham University, I taught at Lehman College. I was one of the first Black females to teach in the math department at Lehman College. But I discovered something very filthy about New York City as a Black woman and as a Black entrepreneur. I discovered that for every dollar in our $116+ billion budget, Black women make less than half a penny. Black women make less than half a penny. 0.18 of a penny to be exact. Black men make 0.37 of a penny. And they claim that white women make 2 pennies, but that's not true. Because if you are a wealthy white man, you will put your business in your mother's, your sister's, and right? White women's name. And so my why, I'm honored to have this chance to really talk today and to share my very vision for New York City and to really talk about my why and what do I want to do for you, New York, and for our children. So I thank the National Council of Negro Women for having me, and I thank you for making space for me as I kind of get into, let's go put a woman in the mayor's office. I think it's time.
Okay, and so with that said, let's start with education. It's become increasingly clear that our young people need more than just a college pathway. If elected mayor, do you see the need to expand educational opportunities and alternatives, including for special education students, and what would that look like?
I am your education mayor, and some things that I'd like to do is very bold and transformational. New York City, at the start of the school year, was very concerned about overbringing cell phones into classrooms. And what they didn't tell parents was in reality they spent $17 million for cell phone bags, instead of giving your children art and music and STEM and hands-on learning. So what I'd like to do is really address the social reproduction of failure. How is it that year after year you get Black and brown and working class kids to only one working class job? So since 1978, Black children was at 13% on the National Assessment of Educational Progress. You have only gained 1 percentage point. You had a 14 over 4 decades. So you need to be bold, and we now need to really envision and inspire our young people. So I want to break your high school model. Your high school kids do not need to be on the same time schedule, and they need consistent opportunities for mentoring, to be able to access coaching, to be able to access hands-on. We have community gardens to be able to go and do the work side by side, right, with our elders and with our business experts. And so we've got to now attack and really be able to inspire our students. Your students were told that they cannot bring cell phones, but they can bring weed every single day of the week. Every single day of the week. The weed is killing our children, and it is something that is impacting their learning outcomes.
Right, and part of the question was, what would you do to expand opportunities also for special ed students?
Well, I actually have a master's in special education, right? And so your special education students Your special education students belong next to your general education students. But New York City in the 80s, when we had the standards movement and what's good enough, you took out all of the hands-on things. You took out all of the things that your special education and all of your students needed. So if you go to Long Island, they have a wonderful BOCES program. So kids learn cosmetics, they learn how to trade, they learn how to build. And so New York City has not invested in that. So I want to invest in the things that all children need, and yes, our special education students need it as well. We also need to support our teachers better. And there's a culture of bullying in New York City. Your principals are bullied, they then bully your teachers, and then they bully your students. So we have to be able to create a much more loving and caring environment for all students, including our special education students.
Let's pivot to housing. Residents here in Queens, Dr. B, are concerned about two key housing issues: the lack of affordable housing for working class families and the need to protect seniors, both through home security and in support of transferring their homes to the next generation. If elected, what would you do to protect the working class in terms of housing?
I want to say to you, you don't have an affordable problem, we have an unaffordable problem in New York City, right? As they build luxury housing and tell us that the rent is $3,000, $4,000. So I have candidates that promise people free rent. It's important to know that it is your city council members that are responsible for the use of land in New York City. It is your city council members who are responsible. So let me explain to you how do we now solve these problems, and I also want to address the city of Yes in this discussion. Most people do not know first what is the city of Yes. It is like a silent bomb that has been dropped in our communities. Throughout New York City, that's right, a silent bomb. For those who do not understand what it is, when New York City was built, we have train zones across the city. These train zones are defined as transit zones, and the buildings had to be just 1 or 2 floor high. So tomorrow when you go out, you'll see it and you'll remember Dr. B telling you 1 floor high building. Our mayor and our city council members just broke the transit zone regulations, and they're going to give developers a welfare check called subsidies to tear those buildings down and supposedly build affordable housing. Come to the South Bronx, go on Guy Brewer Boulevard, and you know fully well they're not going to build affordable housing. So how do you solve this problem for our veterans and for our seniors? The very first thing is the developers should not be using the income of individuals outside of your zip code, outside of your zip zone, right? So what am I including the income of people on Wall Street for when I live in a 10469 zip code? So that's the first thing. The second thing is the mathematics of the formula does not work. They're using an 80-20 for market rate right now, and the 80% goes to the developer. It has to switch. When you switch it, this is what you will get. You will get 15% for veterans, and they're not getting. Our veterans have been left with nothing in this city. So give the veterans the 15% and give the seniors 15%. Now look at the math of that. So now you've got 30%. The other 50% should now have a range of income to really meet the needs of New Yorkers and not just feed the developers, right? How do I know something is affordable in New York City? Is if a teacher can afford to live in New York City. Our teachers cannot even afford the rent in New York City. So now with that 50%, you're not able to fundamentally meet the needs of our New Yorkers. I am your mayor, And the reason why I say that is that the developers are only concerned about supply, supply, supply. We have to now, we have leadership that says we have to be able to create a city for everyone. And let the developer take the 20%, right? And that also ensure that they're not building these box apartments that you can't put anybody in. As you do this, is this possible? Yes, it is. You know how I know it is? There is one community in New York City that has not been gentrified. East New York. Go to East New York and you will see that they have a range of apartments and a range of needs. So this is absolutely possible to be able to do this. I say this to you also, Cheryl, because you asked about the question of deed theft and my why for this. I'm Dr. Bartholomew. My PhD is in leadership and policy. So the policy of the city of Yes is going to be detrimental if you do not have a mayor in there that belongs to you. I don't belong to the PACs. I do not belong to the PACs. I was denied the debate stage during the primary, wait for this, because they demanded me to spend $2.5 million to be able to debate.
Well, let me ask you this. So, if you are elected mayor, will you repeal the current City of Yes program, and how would you do that, and how would you work with the city council to get that done?
I don't think it's necessarily repealing it. I think it's holding people accountable and having some level of transparency. Your police officers wear body camera. Policy is what's killing generational wealth in this city and in this country. So you have to be able to work with your city council members and have some level of transparency. We also are not very well organized. We're not poor in New York City. We've had poor leadership. We are not poor, and we are poorly organized. I want to also say to you regarding the question of deed theft. In St. Albans right now, you have the highest rate of deed theft in this city. You've had more than 3,500 cases of deed theft. Yes, New York State did put the Deed Theft Act, but that doesn't create a stopgap. So when I look at the policy from the perspective of you the people, all they needed to do was also add the fact that if you go to get a deed notarized, it should be notarized by an attorney. You see how I solve problems? Why? Well, that changes the nature of the theft, right? If you're just a regular notary, someone can just say my notary stamp was stolen. If you now put the responsibility of an attorney, you're not going to lose your bar, you're not going to lose your qualifications, right? For the fact of deed theft. So we have to address the stopgap, and we also have to address the issues in the community. We're not poor.
So if you are elected, what exactly would you do from a legislative point of view about escalating rates of deed theft? And you are correct, it is happening primarily in neighborhoods like Southeast Queens. What exactly, as mayor, would you do?
Well, as mayor, first of all, is bringing in a highly qualified team, right? A team of individuals. Having a task force around this issue. I'd also like to do what I call a quality of life index tool, to be able to look zip code by zip code, to be able to assess in every zip code where are seniors. So they're still in the homes of individuals who are now older, they're retired, they may not have a family. So we need to efficiently go across the city and identify, right, those individuals who those deed theft individuals will prey on. The other thing is it takes collaboration with your city council members. I don't want anyone to think that I'm Dr. B and I don't know how to collaborate. I build teams, and so yes, it's collaboration, but it's also empowering you. It's empowering you. I grew up in Harlem. How did you lose Harlem? Because people just thought it was just redlining. No, it's policies. So you, the people, need to be educated. So one of the things I'd like to do is stewardship block by block. Training block leaders, identifying them, giving them the tools and the resources that they need. Bringing the youth, bringing the police. When you have the knowledge that you need, then we will begin to shift the predatory practices that our leaders have now been perpetuating on us, and in particular, perpetuating it on the Black and brown communities across this city.
Okay. Let's turn now to public safety. Right here in Southeast Queens, a 13-year-old boy was shot in the head and killed. Young people with guns off the charts. The Iron Pipeline coming up 95, the guns are landing right in this neighborhood. If elected, what would you do to address gun violence in young people?
It's a four-pronged strategy: education, redirection, accountability, and enforcement. But I'd like to say to you, where are the programs that our students need, in particular our middle and high school students? Our mayor and our city council members, wait for it, this is how we'll get your vote to write my name in. Our mayor and our city council members just gave $400 million to renovate Fifth Avenue. Sit with that. While people talk about giving you free food like if we're slaves, I'm talking about the budget and the numbers. We're not slaves. You have the money you need in this city. $400 million to renovate the front door of Donald Trump, Bloomberg, and the wealthy, the PACs who are supporting them, right? And so we are not poor. We need to now do some things different for our young people. We need art, we need music. I want to take the events that are usually empty during the week, bring in the artists, bring in those individuals, and bring the young people to now have this opportunity to really learn, to really engage. Not just in school, but really rebuilding that village that was torn apart. I grew up in Harlem. And crack devastated our communities, devastated the family in particular. Now you've got that weed that is just being pushed on our children. And so we've got to give them something else. 14-year-olds don't just decide to shoot another kid. It's the weed. So many people don't know what the weed buses are. Take a look at your train stations and you'll see buses where young people are getting on the buses, smoking weed. If you're a young girl and you get on this bus with 3 or 4 men and now you've engaged in some form of sexual activity, 2 days later your video is now being posted, now you're being sex trafficked. This is a culture of violence that is being perpetuated on our young people, and we now have to now take control. We're not poor. $400 million to renovate Fifth Avenue. And I want to say to you, as we think about how do you make your choices, I'm asking for your vote as a write-in. First of all, New York City has a $116 billion expense budget. You count in billions when the millions get to be too much. They have a $169 billion capital improvement budget that we can now use to reimagine our parks, put some STEM centers, put birthing centers. And so while people keep us distracted, talking about free food and free subway, they're not telling you that they really want to control that $169 billion capital improvement budget. Wait for it. I was heartbroken today coming from the Bronx, given what happened. We have a $10+ billion rainy fund budget. Did you know that? A $10+ billion rainy fund budget in New York City. I don't know about you, but I think it's raining in the Bronx and we can't get clean streets when our kids are shooting each other every single day. I've been arguing about a building for 2 years without any heat, without any hot water, and they're telling us that we're poor, putting taxes and taxes and taxes on us. You need a different leader, somebody who is not tied to the super PACs and to the wealthy. I belong to you. I belong to you.
Okay, let's touch on transportation. As you know, this is Queens. Many parts of Queens are transit desert, right? So, and many people are concerned about fare hikes. They're raising the fare to $3 a ride, and the perceived lack of transparency as it relates to the MTA. If elected mayor, what would you do to improve transit in Queens in particular?
Well, first of all, we should know this is the responsibility of the state, right? And so at the end of the day, it's we working with our governor and with our leaders. But what I really want to do for New York City that is bold and has not been done before. So when we're feeling that anxiety about the money, right? We need to now uplift people. The part of being in New York, being in America is part of our upward mobility. So I want to do business hubs across the city. Why is that important? Come into the business hub, learn the skills, develop those expertise. You have, for example, over 200 restaurants in this city that do West Indian food and soul food. Only one of them had franchised, Golden Quest. And so part of the reason in terms of what we're feeling that we can't afford the city is that we fundamentally have not had anybody really uplift us and uplift businesses in this city. When you come into the hub, I'm going to give you matching VC dollars. Some people say, Dr. B, that's not possible. How can we give matching venture capital dollars? You should know it has already been done in New York State. But in the black and brown communities and in New York City, they give us food pantries. We need to have a bigger vision for our communities. We need to be able to really uplift. And so yes, it is working with transit. People are often left for hours. And so it is about really understanding the needs and improving services. Unlike New York State, who put that congestion pricing tax on our back, to use some of that money in order to improve those services.
Okay,
Thank you.
and one last question before you give your closing statement about unemployment, something you referenced in your opening statement. As you know, 300,000 black women have lost their jobs nationwide this year alone, in no small part due to the federal layoffs. It's happening in this city and across the nation. What would a Bartholomew administration look like when it comes to helping black women with employment and WBEs and incorporating them into your administration?
As I mentioned, I've owned my own company for 2 decades. And if in New York City we're yelling at that man out there, it's 2 wings on the same bird. For every dollar in New York City for decades, black women have made less than half a penny. So the business hubs that I'd like to do across the city is really about elevating businesses, bringing women into the hub, giving you the skill sets, what's the nature of the design of your business, right? And elevating you and giving you what you need so that you can now look out on the world and say that the world needs work. And so we cannot just depend on individuals at the whim you at any point. We have to now have within our communities, across the city, not just in black and brown communities, across the city, the sure-footedness, the confidence that we need in order to be able to hire from our community. The reason why the business hubs matter so much is when you build businesses, they can now hire from the community, right? We have over 300,000 people in New York City impacted by the criminal justice system who can't get work. They can either be the entrepreneur or the businesses can now hire them. And so we have veterans, same conditions, right? And also women. We have the creativity, we have the brilliance that we need, but this country has always perpetuated revenue apartheid on us. It is revenue apartheid that you are experiencing, and you now have to have a leader that is able to do this. And it matters to me. I know that there are other individuals on this, but when, for example, our governor, Governor Cuomo was governor, he gave away thousands of waivers to white men so that they wouldn't have to spend $1 with black businesses. He gave away thousands of waivers. And so this is systematic, and we have been electing individuals who belong to the wealthy, and they have the privilege of failing as governor and saying, no, I want to be now mayor.
Okay.
That will help in New York.
Okay, so we're going to time this now. I want you to give your closing statement. You have 1 minute. Clock starts now.
Some of the challenges that I have faced over the past 9 months, where because I'm an educated black woman,
I'm sorry. We're going to need to fix this mic situation. Take my mic for the closing statement. I apologize.
That's okay. I've had no shortage of challenges over the past 9 months as a black female, highly educated woman. I have had media who doesn't want to cover you and they rather cover, right, the failing men. I want to say to you, I did not step into this race lightly. I saw the policies and I saw how it was lined up in terms of really being detrimental to the wealth and to the health of our community. My son was named the Rising Black Scientist of the Year. Let me help you. Let me help you. And so I'm bringing a bold vision of businesses. I'm bringing a vision of doing work in the domestic violence liaison team. Really doing the salt of the earth things that we need to fundamentally rebuild our community and a healthy ecosystem. Do not get the buyer's remorse. Look at the buyer's remorse when I'm telling you that in order to debate, I had to spend $2.5 million. That tells you what and why we're getting the nature of that pay-to-play culture in New York City. And finally, I'm a woman of faith. I'm a woman of faith. You like my gold shoes? It's not just because I'm from Harlem. 4 years ago, I couldn't walk. I fought breast cancer. But look at God. Look at God. Look at God. So I plan on using my faith on Him. I used to be able to come here today and to be in this space. So I am Dr. Selma Bartholomew. I am an official write-in candidate. You must write my name in on the ballot, Selma K. Bartholomew. The name Selma means God's woman, and you've had a Selma be all your life. The American dime was designed by a black woman named Selma. Won't God do it? Thank you so much. Thank you. Dr. Selma Bartholomew, write-in candidate. And we do want to apologize for the distortion. She actually has on a microphone, which may have been causing interference. Is that what you guys are trying to tell me? We'll see, because that was a problem with it too. So I feel like it's a problem now, but I'm going to stop if these mics aren't, because it's not fair to the candidates.
Hey, so, is that your road mic?
Yeah.
That's what's causing the interference. Because I was going to... It's the road mic.
10-9-8-7-6-5-4-3-2-1. Why don't you, I'm sorry, why don't you just give me the 2 mics that work? I got like 20 mics.
You know what I'm saying?
One, two.
Your transmitter that you put on her, that's causing it. I think every time she moved the mic toward
It's still
it.
happening.
All right. Apologies. Okay, our next candidate is Irene Estrada, conservative. Please welcome her.
Mic check, 1, 2. Can everybody hear me?
Thank you. Hello, Mrs. Hello. Apologize in advance for the microphones. Hello. 7654321. Okay. I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Move your hand up. Hit the receiver. Just slide your hand up.
10-9-8-7-6-5-4-3-2-1. I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to our audience. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Is Queens in the house? Yes. Is Queens in the house? Yes. Well, God bless you. You know, my name is Irene Estrada. I am the Police Women Endowment Association Spiritual Advisor, aka Minister. I'm also the Clergy Council of the 49th Precinct. I ran programs for the 49th Precinct Explore program for 8 years with the youth. I coached baseball for 10 years. My 2 daughters are NYPD. One is a sergeant, the other one is a retired detective. My 2 grandchildren are on the job. One is an officer in one of the precincts, and my granddaughter is in the academy. So my whole family is blue. But before my whole family was blue, I was still an activist in the city, in the Bronx, or in the whole city, ministering and also fighting for housing, education, arts, culture, anything that has to do with us as New Yorkers. Not only looking at the disparities, but looking for the solutions. In my community, we never had youth organizations or community centers. I had to make my own children's organization. I had to mentor the children from my community because there was nothing for years. And the only way you can come out of my organization is that you give me 4 years of college. Because once you gave me 4 years of college, I knew that you were set for life. That you could move anywhere in the United States, all over the world, and you were not going to be in poverty. That you were going to be able to take care of yourself. So when we say, what have we done for New York? What I have done for New York is an appreciation of love. I am running because I love New York. I am running because I love you. I love the Bronx, Queens, Staten Island, Brooklyn, and if I miss anybody, forgive me, but I just love New York. We have an accountability to be privileged New Yorkers, regardless of where you come from and how you got here. We're privileged to be here. There is no diversity like what we have here in New York City, so we must fight for it. Mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, and emotionally. I am a daughter to a Korean War veteran. My father passed away in March of this year. My mother worked for the hospitals in Midland, Texas. I am the first Mexican woman to receive the keys to the city in Texas. I am the first Mexican-American woman running for mayor of New York City. And that's all I can share with you for right now.
Okay, let's get started. Development, right, in your opening statement.
Our city currently lacks
enough
recreation centers.
I can't imagine what I'm doing. Our city currently lacks enough recreation centers and safe spaces. As mayor, what citywide resources or programs would you implement to keep our children safe?
Today, I was speaking to one of our youth ministers in the Bronx, and he just got ordained this past weekend. And I was sharing with him because my specialty has always been youth and immigration and seniors and all the issues. In dealing with the youth, it would be my privilege to be the mayor of New York City, to not only bring these programs about to our youth, but to empower them. We're dealing with generations that want an instant result. We live in an instant world with the video games, with technology, everything is 1, 2, 3. So for me as New York City mayor, it would be a blessing because we have an opportunity to empower them, to bring them social skills, but life skills that will set them and prepare them for life. And this is what's missing in our children transitioning from teens and then teens to young adults. There is no parenting training at home because sometimes parents are working 2 or 3 jobs to pay one rent. And I'm a single parent. I raised my 2 daughters. But it was my obligation as a mother, a single parent, to take my daughters to Ballet Hispanico in Manhattan for the Bronx. It was my responsibility as a mother, a single parent, to take them to church on Wednesdays and Fridays and on Sundays. It was my obligation because God gave them to me to be accountable for. Not the city to raise them, not government to raise them. So at the same time while we're empowering and bringing new programs for our youth, we must also empower and train our parents. Because I used to work for the Board of Education as a parent coordinator. And that was my specialty with the parents. I would get all 500 of my parents and empower them. Go home and find out what your kid is doing. Check their phones. Go ahead and do your own. I'm a detective. Go into that room and be a detective. Look for drugs. Look for gang colors. Whatever it might be. So my job as a parent coordinator was to empower the parents to go find out what your kids were doing. Find out what your kids are drinking. Find out who they're hanging around with. Because once you find out and take back your power, you're going to be able to raise a child that's going to be not only progressive, a child that's going to be a great citizen, because the most important thing that I would recommend as your mayor for 2025 for the election is because our youth need to learn the law of the land. If they learn the law of the land, they will know the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony, and they will think twice before they get into trouble. When I ran the programs for the NYPD, the Explore program, my kids in my school, as a parent coordinator, had to go to that program, had to go to a boot camp program, because sometimes they get so out of control, the parents don't know what to do with their own child. In learning everything that the police is doing, they learn the misdemeanors, the felonies, what do you do in case you're in this crime scenario. But then the children learn the law, and they say, you know what? It's good to know the law because now I know that when an officer is doing a car stop, I have an idea because I'm trained as well. Because the same information that the police NYPD has for their programs at the academy is the same knowledge that the children are learning in the Explore program. And we must teach them the law of the land.
Okay, so our audience wants to know what you would do as mayor, like how you would execute this if you took over City Hall. So what would you do? Would you expand the programs for young people through the police department? And I'll take the liberty of asking, what do you make of the job Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch is doing? Would you replace her with a police commissioner of your own with a focus on young people?
Oh, absolutely. The only reason that I would replace her is because she is working under our current mayor, Eric Adams. I've done a lot of work with him, and I have had the privilege to sit with him at the table and discuss many issues as clergy to him as well. But the greatest point in dealing with changing commissioners and transitioning is that we New Yorkers are ready for change. We New Yorkers have had enough of the bureaucracy that has not worked for us. Crime must be lower, yes, but there has to be a solution to take care of all these youth that are running amok in the city. How would I go ahead and implement these programs into our schools? The Explore programs can bring community affairs officers into the schools once a week and train them for those that would like to learn about law enforcement. Just like the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts, but it's to learn the law of the land. In community affairs that we have here in the city, we're blessed because they do so much for us. From Christmas events, for block parties, National Night Out, we do so much stuff together. But when you implement and empower the youth, they participate. You get them off the street, and all they're looking for is something to do. Because the Bible says that idle time is sin time. And we notice that a lot of these kids have so much time in their hands. We have to bring shop back. We have to have life skills cooking, life skills in changing a tire, putting gas in a car, cleaning the house. How about community service in your own house? When your mother got assigned to really do the dishes? How about community service? Did you make up your bed? How about community service? Did you talk back to me for a whole week? Because if you don't respect your parents at home, how are you going to get a job later on? It's youth development. Right. So one thing about bringing these programs, which will be the Explore program, but one thing that has always been in my mind when I was in school is that we had junior achievement. Nice. And junior achievement teaches the kids business. Open a bank account. Learn how to save. What is a trust? How can we fuel money into your account so that you can be successful? So that by the time you graduate from school, you'll already have credit for you to get a car when you go into college. Okay. We have to empower our kids mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, and emotionally.
Hey, you mentioned immigration, that you're passionate about it. As a sanctuary city, which was, of course, designated under former Mayor Ed Koch to protect undocumented residents from federal enforcement, as we all know, New York City continues to face threats like ICE raids. And they're taking everyday people that they claimed first they were going after criminals. Now we know that is not the case. They're taking students, they're taking fathers. If elected, Ms. Estrada, what message would you communicate to the White House about what's happening right now?
As mayor of New York City, my obligation is to make sure to protect every New York resident that is here in New York City, including the undocumented. Immigration is a federal law. So whatever the president decides to do through his executive orders, then we as any mayor in the United States has to comply or sit at the table with him to discuss how can we change this, because of the effects that our communities are going to have. The separation of families, people are not going to be able to work, the fruits are not going to be picked up, no one's going to pick up child from school, because immigrants are fuel America for so many years. But because of the crimes that we have been dealing with, they have not been vetted. So when I sat down with Eric Adams in February, I had mentioned to him, do not receive the immigrants that are coming from the that are being sent here from all over because they're not vetted. I am the national activist for immigration, and I understand that everybody has applied from all over the world. But my responsibility is New York City residents first. That is my responsibility as mayor. My responsibility as mayor is New York City residents first. Do I love the whole world? Absolutely. But we need to shut it down for a moment and for a time so that we can get back to the basics and save our own communities from their struggles. The lack of education, the lack of jobs, the lack of affordable housing, the lack of anything. The accountability as an elected official is so that you can go home and sleep in peace and know that Miss Irene is working 24/7 so that you don't have to worry about the issues and not be stressed. And this is what's happening to all of us right now with immigration. It's stressing us out because we have people from Jamaica, from Haiti, from China, I have the blessing to work with people from all over the world, from Yemen, from Pakistan, from all over the world. But if I tell you that I sat in a state, in a college with over 2,000 people, and they were all came for an immigration workshop, and I saw all my neighbors, all over from the Bronx, or from the churches in Queens, or the churches in Brooklyn. I saw so many people that I recognized. So when I look at their faces and say, if they do a raid, these are the very people they're going to pick up. These are the very people that are going to be a target. But it's not just that. Because now we're all being threatened because we all are either married to someone who's undocumented, have children with someone who is undocumented, or have children in our schools who have families who are undocumented. So where do we stand as Christians? Do we fight the good fight? But then we also have to respect the law of the land. And that is where I stand. I will respect the law of the land. I will sit down with the president and give him my 2 cents about what we should do for my city, my people, because it will be our accountability to make sure the safety net is a safe haven. But I will always stand that if you come against a police officer and do any kind of criminal activity, you will be reported immediately.
Let's turn to mental health. As you know, the city is in the throes of a mental health crisis. If elected, Mrs. Estrada, what would you do to implement new policies to address this long-standing issue?
Well, when it comes to mental illness, we can go back all the way to 9/11. I work in Ground Zero. I work with the first responders. I work with the firemen and the clergy and the people who volunteer from all over the world to come in and cook, gumbo or whatever it might be. I work at Ground Zero. So when you see the destruction of what was left, a war zone, all of this left us, the whole city or the whole nation, in a state of depression, in a state of uncertainty, and a state of mental illness that has not been resolved or discussed. Then after that, we had COVID. We were locked down for 2 years. We were lied about the vaccines. We had vaccines that were mandated. People lost their jobs because they didn't take the vaccine. So again, we were locked down, so that invades your privacy mentally, physically, spiritually, financially, and emotionally. And imagine all these children, they missed 2 years of school, and those students that missed 2 years of college and interacting with their own friends. So when school opens again without COVID, we have an obligation to see how do we feel about communicating now, because we were so concerned about the terms.
Okay, so if elected mayor, what policies would you develop or promote to address the mental health crisis?
So my policies that I would bring in is that we have to have more therapy, not only for the seniors, for the veterans, therapy for the moms, for the single parents, for anyone who struggles, for any kind of addiction, for any kind, maybe you had a bad day. So when you run programs with the NYPD, the first thing the kids will learn is that If someone is having an emotional day, maybe somebody died, maybe you broke up with somebody, and you're having a mental illness day, listen, you can become an emotional wreck. So we need certain places that can be a safe haven where the people are having a bad day, they can call or they can come, walk in and say, excuse me, I need to speak to somebody in therapy, or can you recommend something for me? Mental illness is a very delicate issue because we do have a lot of people that are homeless who have mental issues. My brother was homeless. We didn't know he was homeless in California. And when I found out when he was homeless because a detective called my father, and when they called me, they said that somebody had stabbed my brother, and they killed him because he was homeless. And that happened in Victoria, California. When they found him, I was told that during that season, people had a problem with homelessness, and they were setting people on fire. So if they saw someone that was homeless and they had an issue with them, they would run over them or kill them. My brother was a victim. When they told me that he got stabbed once or twice, it's something. But when I read the report 2 months later, he got stabbed 71 times. So then you say homelessness is a mental illness. So what the person that killed my brother, what did he have? Because we come from different states that have different laws. 25 years in prison is never enough for taking somebody's life. So this is something that is very delicate when dealing with mental illness, because you never know how we can assist you. Perfect example in the Bronx. A couple of years ago, there was a man, the police was called to Pound Parkway and White Plains Road in the Bronx. They said that a man had just chopped up his wife to pieces. When the officers arrived, the officers were attacked by the man with a sword. Mental illness? Or was the man just violent? But it's never a safety net. How do we address mental illness? Because there will be some that will come to the office and get help, and then there will be some that don't want help. So we all have to be cautious because we are living in times that are very difficult. And I'm giving you this example because mental illness comes in different volumes. So I as your mayor have to sit down with the health and hospitals to find out how we can assist the children at home, in the schools, to get the help that they need so they can grow up and be healthy. Because my concentration is the new generations to come. Because every grandmother and every grandfather that is in this audience today, we're taking a stand for their children and their future for tomorrow, because we're all concerned of the uncertainty in New York City. But if we're trusting God, God gives us a plan. And that's what I'm trusting on, the plan that God will give me so that we can implement all these programs and that money will not be wasted.
Okay. Yeah, so I want to get in one more question before we run out of time. Let's talk about the affordability crisis, Ms. Estrada. What do you make of the city of Yes? And what would you do to improve the city's infrastructure? Right here in Queens, we have a major sewer problem where there is a bad storm, and it gets backed up, homes are flooded, it's happening all over this city. If elected, Ms. Estrada, what would you do about that?
I would have to sit down with engineers, number one, because that would be their profession. But working as an American Red Cross relief worker, I dealt with all the disasters from Sandy to the Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico to Hurricane Katrina. I have dealt with many of these crises, and what happens is that many times the money has been funded for this particular bridges, particular infrastructure, and then when a crisis happens and a flood comes, you find out that they never used the money for what it had to be used for. So that was not only a waste, but an abuse of power. And that creates a problem for property owners, a problem for our communities, and a problem for all New Yorkers. As an elected official, I will certainly make a way to make sure that rapid response teams will be there first for any crisis when it comes to flooding, fires, or any kind of infrastructure across the city. Why? Because I know that you work hard for what you have. I know that you love where you live, because we live here in New York. I know that you have a heart of gold and you want to be appreciated, and that you want someone to tell you it's going to be okay. And I am that mayor that's going to tell you it's going to be okay, because I'm going to make these engineers accountable. We do have to have more sand areas where the flooding comes in to be taken care of, especially when you're talking about the sewage.
Right.
Absolutely, that has to be taken care of like at 100%, because that also happens in the Bronx, and the water goes into different communities or in their homes. You know, you can't be living like that. You bought that house because that's where you want to live. But if it's the city's fault, the city has to fix it. And they should not be wasting their time and on slow-mo to take care of it. It has to be addressed.
Okay.
But the greatest thing about working with rapid response teams is that you're not only going to see them in action, but you also have to take a survey of what is it exactly that your community and your block needs, so that we can follow through and make sure it gets done. Because the city that you live in has to take care of the things that they're responsible for, and that's something that I would do.
Okay, thank you. And we want to give you 1 minute now to give a closing statement to the audience. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here with you. I am here to tell you, I hope that you will vote for Irene Estrada on November the 4th. I am Mexican American, and I love who I am because that's what my mom and my daddy did. But I will tell you that the best privilege that I can share with you now is that we all must get right with the Lord, because we're living in terrible times. We're living in wicked times. But God gives us a solution. God said that because we're all conquerors through Him, there is nothing we cannot do when we bind together. And you guys are the solution. You are the answered prayer to your community. You keep coming out to the meetings. You keep meeting with me, and we're going to take care of one solution at a time. Because you know what? Your city is my city, and I love you like I love New York. But I will say this very boldly. I will follow democracy, because I love democracy. I love the Constitution of the United States. But I will defend you from tyranny, from terrorists, and from extremists. Because our job as New Yorkers is to live a joyful life that God has given us to prosper. Like the plans that God has for us. What did God say? That the plans that God has for you are plans not to harm you, but plans to protect and to bless you. And that's what I'm going to leave you with, because I know my God is a big God, and I'm here because I'm God sent. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you so much. Irene Estrada. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much. Another round of applause for conservative Irene Estrada. Thank you so much for being here. Our next candidate is Mr. Joseph Hernandez, an independent candidate. Mr. Hernandez. How are you? See you. Okay, Mr. Hernandez, here's what we're doing with every segment. We are 20 minutes, and we want to start off giving you a 1 minute introduction. Please.
Wonderful. Good evening, everybody. It's wonderful to be here tonight. My microphone? There we go. I think you guys can hear me. So first of all, thank you. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Okay. So first of all, thank you guys for having me here today. I am delighted to be. Maybe I can use your microphone.
Yes, I mean, it's happening.
Okay, now I'll just sit up and shout. I grew up in a house of 4, so screaming was part of it. Anyway, so thank you again for having me tonight. Just by way of background, my name is Joseph Hernandez, and I am a candidate for mayor and running as an independent. I am really a business guy. I have a background in finance and in science. I'm actually trained as a scientist. I'm a molecular biologist. Did my education at the University of Florida, where I got a degree in neuroscience I got a graduate degree in molecular genetics and a graduate degree in finance. And then I went to Yale, I got a degree in epidemiology, and finished a degree at Oxford University in global health. So I've been in science my entire career. And my story starts in a little town in Cuba called Camagüey. And Camagüey is a little village that is an agricultural village. And there, I lived for the first 7 years of my life in a communist regime, which really impacted my life. I remember as a kid, being in long lines in the grocery to get groceries. My power was off often. And then we had the Communist Party individuals that always benefited from those societies. So I have a good sense of what communism is. And so I left at the age of 7. My dad was a political prisoner. We came to this country with nothing. My dad washed dishes. My mom cleaned houses. And they said to me when I was a kid, and all of us, because it was 4 of us, so look, in this country, you have to work hard, and you have to get educated. Education is your ticket out of this situation. And you have to love this country, because this is the best society, and this is a society that's giving you the opportunity to live this life. And then at some point in your life, you're going to have to repay back the debt to this great society. And you're going to have to raise your hand and stand up. And the reason I'm running for mayor is I feel that is my time. I feel that this is my opportunity to give back to this country, to the city that has given me so much. And I am delighted to be taking on that honor.
Let's see if this works. Okay, so let's start out with homelessness. As you know, it's a major situation here in New York City, tied into the housing crisis. If you are elected, Mr. Hernandez, what would you do differently from the current administration to address the homelessness crisis?
Well, I think this is a significant issue. We have a lot of problems in New York City, but this is one that I think is very important, one we need to deal with right away. We have almost 150,000 individuals that live in our temporary housing every night. We have about 4,000 people that live on the streets of New York City. We're a civilized, advanced country. We should not have that. Unfortunately, a lot of these individuals have mental issues. They need medical attention. Some of them have addiction problems. So I have a plan. It's a very aggressive plan to really get these people housed immediately. And the fastest way to do that, unfortunately, building houses, as you know, takes a long time from a construction perspective. So I have a plan where I want to lease a floating temporary housing facility to house these individuals on a temporary basis, provide them the medical intervention they need and the drug intervention problems they need, and get them back to society, get them back to be functional members of our society. We can't do that any other way. There's no real housing capability to do that. We can do this effectively and efficiently. It costs on average, the math that we did is about $120 a night per individual. Right now it's about $380, almost $400 using the regular housing facility. So, it's been done before. This concept of using a reestablished cruise ship effectively to convert it to a hospital and housing facility has been done in other places around the world, and I would like to adopt that technology.
Would it be mandatory or would it be voluntary? Because therein lies the road.
Yeah, look, I think you have to use logic and humanity in this. I think there's some individuals that really need clinical intervention. I think we look at mechanisms to ensure that we use those clinical paths to get them the help they need. But at the end of the day, this is America. It's a free country. We can't incarcerate people that haven't done anything. So it's a fine balance, and I think we have to work to convince people that there is a path to a better life of living on the streets, and I think this is one step forward. We can't solve all the problems, but this is certainly a solution, I think.
Sure, I want to pivot to elder care, something that so many residents here in Queens deal with, specifically Accessoride. It is unreliable to so many. And if elected, what would you do to improve this service?
I think it's a great question. We spent a lot of time looking at how do you make the existing government services more efficient. And the solution is artificial intelligence. I know it's an overused term. I am an expert in artificial intelligence. We just brought a company public doing artificial intelligence. It is the future of the world, it is the future of America, it is the future of the city. We should be deploying artificial intelligence for routing buses, for routing traffic, for making sure that patients are getting to their appointments, elderly patients in the right time, making sure they're taking medicine correctly. The technology exists, we don't have to reinvent this technology, it exists. My plan calls for deploying artificial intelligence across the city to address issues of traffic, to address issues of potholes, garbage collections. There's technologies that can solve this. It's a minimal investment, it will transform our lives. The other thing I want to do around artificial intelligence is we need to educate our kids, especially kids of minority communities, our Latinos, our African American children, who really need a path forward for education in the next generation of technologies. Artificial technology is the future. We need to educate our young kids in that field. It is what electricity was in the 1800s. And a lot of people don't know this, but electricity was first deployed in New York City, in the Upper East Side. We should be leading in artificial intelligence. We should be using it for these kinds of issues, but also educating the next generation of kids so that they can have a future that's bright with high incomes so they can get out of this perpetual challenge that we have in New York City.
But how would artificial intelligence help accessible?
Well, in this perspective, I'll tell you. So first of all, for bus routing, that is a very deployable technology. You can track where all these vehicles are. You can track where the personnel is. You can track the patients as well, the patient's medical records. I mean, these are all integrated systems that exist that are being utilized. So yeah, it's not a foreign technology. There may be some custom packages you might have to develop for some of these applications, but I think AI is an absolute tool that you can deploy.
Yeah, and let's talk about disabilities. So many residents, especially in Queens, live with disabilities, various ages. Older adults want to age in place, but they cannot because the city has become so unaffordable, especially when you are disabled. As mayor, how would you address this critical issue?
Look, this is something I can relate to. My dad was disabled. My dad, when he was a political prisoner in Cuba, he developed encephalitis and he had partial paralysis, so he wasn't a disabled individual. And, we had a lot of challenges with transport. We had a lot of challenges just getting him, things that he needed around the house to make him move out. So I understand these issues. I think there's a couple of things we can do. One is we can certainly look at addressing more in-house help for a lot of these individuals. I think we have to look at funding mechanisms, whether they be private or federal, to make sure that we have nurses and physicians that can visit. And again, this is another area where AI can help. There are tools for AI right now that you can interact with a physician without having to leave your home. There are mechanisms that you can assess whether an individual has been doing physical therapy, so you can literally in front of a monitor, do your exercises, and the algorithm knows whether you need a certain intervention based on what you're doing in front of the camera. So I think AI can be deployed here to help as well, but I think you need a nurse. You need a nurse, and you need an inpatient in-house care.
Yeah, as you know, AI is not a perfect science.
It's not.
There are all kinds of problems with AI.
It's new technology, for sure.
It's not the answer to, like, a lot of people want to push it, and say, like, it's the great answer to all of our problems. How would you protect this city, since you would be the AI mayor, based on the answer?
I wear a badge of honor, by the way.
But we all know there are problems with AI. So how would you protect, if elected, New Yorkers from the dangers of AI?
I think you can have a balance of deploying this technology in a way that protects individual freedoms. It's been done before. The reality is, we're today. My mic, when you, okay, thank you, here we go. So to your point, we have to protect the individual liberties. We have to make sure that this technology is not used to persecute and prosecute people incorrectly, make sure that it's not used in a biased way, because it can be used. It can be using these things. And I think there are ways to do that, to put guardrails to make sure that doesn't happen. But it is a tool that if we don't lead in it, we will be following. The rest of the world and all the other major cities are deploying this technology for the benefit of the residents. And I think if you put these guardrails in place, you can have benefit from these technologies.
If I want to talk about prison reform now, many over-policed communities face consequences of punitive public safety systems. Children, even in school, are being arrested for the slightest infraction, and it's not happening on the Upper East Side. It's not happening in Greenwich Village. It's happening in places like Southeast Queens. If elected mayor, what would you do to bring equity to public safety so everyone feels safe and all of their children feel safe?
Look, I think it's a real issue. I think it's an issue of disparity in a lot of ways. I also think that we need to make sure these kids have things to do that prevent them from really getting in trouble and being around people that are going to get in trouble. I think policing is a necessity that we need as a society. I think, unfortunately, incarceration for people who commit real crimes is something we need as a society. I think these kids don't need that. I think these kids need good role models. They need an opportunity to get educated. They need to be in an environment where they can excel, because the next great scientist, the next great politician, the next great teacher is sitting in schools, and we can't let them fall through the cracks. We need to do something. So I think that this may be controversial in this group, but I really believe that charter schools is, when you look at the data around charter schools, I'm a real believer in charter schools. I'm a believer in parent choice. I'm a believer that you should really look at mechanisms to ensure that the parents have more input as to where these kids go to school, where they get educated, and that requires voucher programs in charter schools, and it requires a new way to look at the way we do it. Because look, our budget in this city, which is $120 billion, we spend the majority of our money in schooling, and yet almost $38,000 per child in the school. And by the way, that's what it costs for private schools up in Connecticut. If you and these kids at the school age, they can't read and write on average. It's really a sad testament to our schooling. So I want to challenge our reality of how we educate our kids. Let's have parents have more choice. Let's really challenge the system. I think the status quo it's not going to get changed. It's not going to work. And I think we're doing our kids a disservice by not asking the hard questions to our politicians and to our teachers and to our teachers' unions. I mean, we really have to challenge this.
You mentioned you support charter schools. So one of the issues with charter schools is that sometimes they get more money than the traditional elementary schools, especially in areas like Southeast Queens. It's not equal distribution, and the parents are seeing this in real time. If elected mayor, what would you do to even that out so all students under one roof are treated the same?
For sure. Look, the disparity is real. We looked at the numbers. The disparity is real. I think you have to bring full accountability. I mean, I think the other thing that I say, which some people feel as controversial, is we really have to bring accountability to the teachers and the leadership that educate these students. I think that's really important. Resources is one thing. We need more resources. There's no question. But my plan is to pay teachers that are doing a good job more. I am, again, very pro looking at charter systems. I'm looking at a modality that the parents have a choice. There's going to be schools that are not performing, that we have to ask the hard questions. Should we keep those schools open? And I would argue that they're not performing.
But is the answer closing schools? I mean, so many are quick to close the schools. Many would say the real problem is with the SHSAT, because there are so many students that have an advantage from grade 4 and 5. These SHSATs are very expensive. They have a built-in advantage. There are 8 black students that were admitted to the best school in public school in the city, Stuyvesant, and everyone else has to languish in other schools that are, they perform but not as well as Stuyvesant. So if elected, what would you do about the SHSAT issue?
I mean, I think, to be quite honest, that's an area that I think needs to be looked at, because the reality is these metrics are not real metrics of performance. I think if you look, and I work on Wall Street, I've worked at the best companies. these metrics are not true indicators of education or intelligence or success levels. We have to really look at it a different way. I don't know what the answer is. I wish I had a good answer for this. But I don't
that's why they're here, because they want to hear you're running the mayor. So if there was ever a time for you to have answers to this question.
I have answers for a lot. I don't have answers for everything.
Well, you would be in charge of the largest public school district in America.
And what I would do is exactly what I just said. I would hold teachers accountable. I would take the teachers home. I would do a charter I would continue to fund charter programs. I would expand charter programs. I would expand teacher individual parent choice, because I truly believe that works. And when you look at the data, by the way, when you look at the data, the charter school systems are outperforming our public schools. And that is data that is unrefutable.
But many people are saying why. See, this is, and I'm glad we're talking about this, because this is what this is why people in Queens turned out tonight, because they want to hear what the candidates have to say, especially about education. Because in this borough, we see segregated schools. And everyone is fed up, and this is the most consequential election, and we need solid answers. So what would you do about, you can mention charter schools, and that's fair, but what would you do to end the segregation in public schools in New York City?
I think you have to look at first of all, we need more resources. There's no question. I think the schools that are not performing, where you have a high level of population, we need more funding. And I can tell you, listen, the New York budget is a $120 billion budget. There is about $15 billion of fat in that budget that could be reallocated for schooling. Because I think, again, you have to pay good teachers. The other problem you have is you're losing a lot of good teachers. A lot of young good teachers are leaving these districts. You need those people. They go to Long Island, exactly. I mean, this is like a training ground for teachers in Long Island. So I think you need to make a real investment in these schools. And you need to cut the fat out of the existing budget. You need to reallocate this money to the schools that aren't performing. But I am a real believer, because I'm a data guy, I'm a scientist, that the data around charter schools and vouchers are real. They work. We have to look at that. We can't ignore it.
Quickly, I want to ask you one more question, since you say you're a data guy. Inflation is a major problem in this city.
Yes.
New Yorkers are paying too much for a gallon of everything, a loaf of bread, a gallon of gas, everything. So what would you do if elected mayor to address inflation?
Well, inflation is a macroeconomic challenge. You can't really address it from a macro perspective. You can address the cost at a local level. My plan to address the cost of living in New York City, which is, by the way, a real issue across all economic bands. I think it affects everybody equally. I think on the housing side, and I know people are proposing ideologies like freeze the rent, that doesn't really solve the big problem in New York City. The problem we have in New York City is that we have a vacancy rate of 1.4%. The national average is 7%. So what that means is that at any one time, there's only 32,000 apartments that you can rent. And think about it, only 32,000 apartments for everybody who's looking for housing. New people moving in, people that are moving out, people are getting married. This is a real issue. The only way to get the cost of living down as it relates to rent is to increase capacity. We need to build 150,000 new units to get between 1.4 and 7%. There's three ways that we plan on doing it. One is, there's 50,000 units right now that are called warehouse. They're sitting in the corner. These are people that own apartments that don't want to put it back into the market because there's no economic rationale for them to do that. We got to incentivize it, and we got to force them to put these units back in the market. I think there's a double-edged sword here. And my plan is to incentivize these landlords to put those 50,000 units in the market. The other thing we have is here, we have 95 million square feet of office space unused. We could build almost 50,000 units if we just take 50% of that. And we have to work with city council to change zoning around that. But that's my other strategy. We can do that in a very short period of time. The third part of that strategy is to use city-owned property. The city owns 1,400 lots right now that we can build tomorrow. These are selling in residential. We have to just kind of deal with builders and people who can build homes. To build homes for our cops, our teachers, the single moms that are struggling in the city. That's one way to address the housing issue. Let me talk a little bit about food, because that's a real issue, and one that we spent some time on. Yeah. So, I have been endorsed by the Bodega Association, and with them, I have been interactive. They own, there's about 13,000 bodegas in the city of New York, and the complaint they have is that they don't have the buying power like the big, like Walmart and CVS do. So my plan is to propose a co-op, effectively a buying co-op, where they all buy from this co-op. The savings they get, which on average will be about 15 to 20%, those savings, they're going to pass half of those savings on to the customers. So immediately we will get, on average, about a 10 to 50% discount across the board on things like eggs and milk and all the things that we need on a daily basis. And bodegas where we mostly shop. So these are really impactful to the city. Those two plans will have an impact on the cost of living, a positive impact on living.
1 minute for a closing statement.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for the invitation. I really enjoyed the interaction. Some really good questions. I have to do some homework on some of these, so I appreciate the hard challenge. I can tell you, I am not a career politician. I'm a businessman. I'm an immigrant. I came from nothing. My dad washed dishes. My mom cleaned houses. I know the struggles of coming up poor. I know that. And I can tell you, and if I can inspire you to think about something here, is that in this country, you can achieve greatness. It doesn't matter where you come from. You can achieve greatness. You have to work hard. You have to get educated. Education is the ticket out of this. And you have to make sure that our society has mechanisms to ensure that our kids have a chance at success. I am delighted again to be here. I'm doing this for the right reasons. I love this city, and I appreciate the opportunity and ask for your support on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, our last candidate is Curtis Lewa, Republican. Come on up, Curtis Lewa. We're so glad Mrs. Lewa could make it. We've been spending a lot of time together. For full disclosure, you'll see Curtis on my talk show in Focus on Sunday. He taped with us today, and we were just together at the Apollo. So, Mrs. Lewa, 1 minute introduction to our audience.
Okay, I'm Curtis Lewa, founder and president of the Guardian Angels. I started it in 1979 in the Bronx. We now have groups in 13 countries and 130 cities around the world. And for the second time, I'm running for mayor of the city of New York. I was Eric Adams' opponent in 2021. I lost. This time, obviously, we know that Eric has left the race. There's 3 left. Andrew Cuomo, Zoran Mandami. I'm the Republican candidate, but I'm also the first ever independent candidate running on the Protect the Animals line, which means no-kill shelters and putting animal abusers in jail. And so now we have a little more than a month to the election. I know some people have suggested that I drop out. Let the people decide. Let them vote. They will determine who the next mayor of the city of New York is. Not the billionaires, not the professional political class.
Okay, let's start with public safety, since that's something you've centered your career on for the last 40 plus years. Major issue. Guns are coming into neighborhoods like Southeast Queens, all over the city. Children are getting their hands on guns. If elected, Mr. Sleever, what would you do to stop the iron pipeline that winds its way through New York City?
Well, I have a good access here in Queens because the mother of my 2 youngest sons is actually the Queens District Attorney Melinda Katz, a Democrat. So we oftentimes have discussions. As you know, you just had a 13-year-old shot and killed in the same location as another who recently got shot and killed. My expertise is in gang violence and the retaliatory effect. So it's clear to me that when then Governor Cuomo decided to raise the age to 18, I don't think he had the street smarts to understand that older men, especially then, will utilize juveniles to carry guns and to commit acts of violence against one another and others. And so I think we have to get back to where we were, because we really were curbing juvenile youth violence. It sparked up in the Bronx, where I started the Guardian Angels. You saw that grandmother in Harlem, age 68, was cut down in broad daylight, 12 noon, while going for lunch because of juvenile gang activity. And you see it throughout the areas of Queens. So I would say more than anything else, we have got to get these young people off the streets and involved in activities that keep them out of harm's way. I did and continue to do it for years, getting them involved in the Guardian Angels, Junior Guardian Angels. There are a lot of great programs out there, but they oftentimes say you're $1 short and a day late. They don't get the funds necessary to keep those young men and young women out of harm's way.
What do you make of stop and frisk? Because many young men of color right here in Southeast Queens are thrown up against the wall. Sometimes they're going to the corner store just to get a loaf of bread for their grandmother, and they become a suspect with officers rifling through their pockets. What's your position on stop and frisk?
Well, you know, the first 13 years of the Guardian Angels, the police didn't like us. Ed Koch, the mayor at that time, was opposed to us, so they oftentimes stopped and frisked me wherever I went, the subways and the streets. So I know how it works. At the end of the 40 years of Michael Bloomberg, there were 1,000 stop and frisks. There were quotas, 5 a day, in order to keep the sergeant away. Even Pat Lynch, who was the PBA president, publicly condemned Bloomberg and said, "You're turning the people of the community against us because of these stop and frisk." Now, it is constitutional if it's done right, but you have to have cause to want to search someone. You see a bulge, you see something that appears to be a gun. Not just because you see somebody, what I call lollygagging on the corner, and you figure they're up to no good, so you throw them all up against the wall, and then you basically shake them down.
Okay, let's talk about the housing crisis. There's no question that there is a building boom in New York City. The issue is there's not an affordable building boom. Buildings are going up everywhere, but many people cannot afford to live there, and many existing residents are being priced out. If elected, Mr. Sliwa, what would you do to create more affordable housing in New York City?
Well, I look at the plans that are already underway. I look at the Jamaica Avenue corridor. Because I remember as a boy going there for martial arts lessons, the Macy's, taking the J train to the end of the line. And I see all these new developments, and I walk into them, and I say, how many affordable units are here? Not many. And those that are affordable seem to have been swept up by people in the know for family, friends, or those who work for them. So I think there's no doubt we need affordable housing. But I start with the available housing. We have NYC complexes. Southeast obviously has its share, but I dealt mostly in Brownsville. There are 18 units, and South Bronx, where there are many. There's 6,000 empty apartments, and they've been that way for years. That's something the mayor can immediately rehab and move families in there, mothers with children. They need to get out of the family shelters. We need to put them in a good place where they can raise their family, you know, with a bit of decency and a bit of privacy. That's number one. Number two, you have rent-stabilized units there, 28,000 of them, and they're off the market because oftentimes a small or mid or large landlord cannot get a tenant out who's not paying the rent for whatever reason, and they get stuck in tenant-landlord court 3, 4, 5 years, and then they become squatters. And so what they decide is, okay, I took a loss there. I'm just not going to rent the apartment anymore. We got to convince the landlords to do that. And then in areas like this, which are residential, I know a lot of people who occupy their home. That means they're not absentee landlords. They have 2, 3, 4 apartments. Somebody dies, somebody moves to Florida, and they don't rent the apartment. And I talk to them and I say, how come? I'd rather lose on the apartment, pay higher electricity rates, which they're doing now, higher water rates, higher sewage rates, higher property taxes, than have a nightmare tenant who I don't know, who's not a family or a friend. We have about 100,000 available apartments that I think can be put back into the marketplace somewhat rapidly, and then we can talk about building affordable housing, but we got to stay off the parkland, and we got to stay off the wetlands. We don't have enough parkland and wetlands.
As the founder of the Guardian Angels, you know about the homelessness crisis in this city firsthand. You traveled on trains for decades. You see that people live sometimes on the trains. If elected mayor, what would you do about the homelessness crisis?
The sin of our city is that we found $7 billion to spend for people we didn't even know, migrants. $7 billion. We didn't even know them. If you remember watching the old Joe Franklin show on Channel 9, remember the Milford Plaza? The first place they brought him to was the Milford Plaza right on 8th Avenue and 44th Street at $400 a night. And then all of a sudden, when we gave him a bagel and a schmear in the morning, they say, well, that's not culturally appropriate. I want Kona Rosa Habichuelas with a chuleta on top. The gall. What? You don't want to eat a bagel and a schmear? The way you came is the way you could go back. Oh, no. We catered to them. In the meantime, I deal with mostly African-American men and women. Many of them who are homeless, destitute, emotionally disturbed, some of them veterans. And they are sleeping in subways and parks and streets. Many of the shelters are not safe. I've been in quite a few of them. There are 335 run by the Department of Homeless Services. Many of them are very dangerous because there are no rules and regulations indoors. So I talk to the people. And I would put back the homeless outreach unit that used to exist in the police department before de Blasio took $1 billion out of the budget in 2020. These were men and women, police officers dedicated only to dealing with homeless and emotionally disturbed. They were clients. They knew who they were. They knew who the directors of the shelters were, the security. They met with the neighborhood. They kept the peace. And they took care of the clients. An average cop in a precinct does not want to be dealing with that. And every mayor promises social workers to do it like de Blasio did, remember, with his wife Thrive? We have a saying in Italian, ma qua mai. We're still waiting for the social workers to take care of the homeless and the emotionally disturbed. State hospitals, we have enough beds. But unfortunately, when Governor Cuomo was governor, there were 40,000. By the time he fled to the Hamptons to avoid impeachment, there were only 4,000. It's 36,000 beds we lost. And these people, you know, it comes down to what my father and mother said to me. There by the grace of God go you. Never make fun of these people. You don't know what their stories are. That at any given moment of the day or night, there could be something traumatic in your life in which all of a sudden you're destitute, you're in that situation. What we need is not tough mayors. I think we'd all agree nobody's tough to make Curtis Slater, right? But you don't have to talk about being tough. We need compassion, consideration, and caring. And we just don't have enough of that in government now.
So you think cops should, let's talk about mental health, the mental health crisis. You think cops, and we talked about this Monday, you think cops should deal or be the first responders to someone in a mental health crisis?
Unless we have trained, competent mental health care workers who can accompany the police on that kind of call. But every mayor has said they were going to do it, de Blasio and Adams, and I'm in the subways every day. I'm the only candidate to actually campaign in the subways and go into 350 neighborhoods, some of which the other candidates don't go because they're not all friendly faces. As a Republican, I go into neighborhoods where the only Republican they've ever seen is Abraham Lincoln on a $5 bill. And I get respect. Now, we'll see on November 4th if I get their votes.
Let's talk about elder care. Many in this community are concerned about accessory, right? It's unreliable for generations now. If elected, how would you fix accessory?
Well, my mother, Francesca, lived in Canarsie in the house that I now have. My mom and dad, my dad passed first, and then my mother, depended on the accessory. And I remember the service was almost as bad as the express bus service when you're waiting for the express bus and it almost never comes according to the app. It can be much, much more efficient. It was a great idea. It certainly enabled the elderly to get to their healthcare appointments on time, but it seems like over the years, the service has diminished radically, and there's really no advocate for senior citizens. Now, I'm the oldest person running for mayor. I'm 71. I'm a senior citizen. If I don't advocate for senior citizens, well, let's face it, I'm going to be in that situation too.
I think you're there, actually. So let's talk about food deserts, especially in communities like Southeast Queens. There are not enough supermarkets with fresh food. This endless generation, you and I both lived in Rockaway Beach, and we know what it was like, how far you had to travel for a supermarket. If elected mayor, what would you do to make sure every community had access to fresh food?
Well, every time, like, we were up at the Apollo Theater the other night, and as I was walking over from the A train, I called it the ICU belt. Popeyes, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Kennedy's. You eat that stuff, if it don't get you when you're young, it's going to get you when you're old. We know that. And the fast food, and remember, I used to be a night manager of McDonald's in the Bronx. That's where I formed the Guardian Angels in 1979. It is intolerable. Look, I'm not suggesting you do away with fast food, but when all you have is an alley of fast food restaurants, fried foods, the worst possible foods you can have, and they sell them sometimes a little bit on the cheap side, a lot of sugar, and they're not giving you an alternative to the food. I mean, you come into my neighborhood, the Upper West Side, oh, Trader Joe's, you know, it's like fresh food, fresh everything. There's got to be a balance. Now, you may have to subsidize, you know, this is not Zoran Mandami, city-run supermarkets, because as I will say to Zoran in the debate, I'll say, Zoran, you know, it's a well-intentioned idea, but the shoplifters are going to go in there and they're going to put that out of business too. You're so hopelessly naive. But I think we have to subsidize, especially the smaller supermarket operators, and say, what is it going to take for you to carry fresh produce, fresh foods, better food quality, because it's a more premium price? How can we subsidize that so that you can still make your money and people in these neighborhoods can still afford it? And with the president cutting back on SNAP cards, food stamps, that's going to make it really, really difficult. And I must tell you, in the heartland of America, Republican farmers are not happy he's cutting back on food stamps, nor the food distributors, the whole chain, because what I want to do is just make sure the food is of better quality, fresher quality. One of the few things I agree with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., sugar is a killer, and we've seen that. And we have to do things to make sure that there's a more balanced diet.
Yeah, speaking of the White House, many local hospitals and community health centers, Mr. Sliwa, are facing deep cuts due to the federal government. As mayor, how would you support, provide a safety net for these community health centers, especially, that may be forced to close due to a lack of funding?
Well, with the cuts in Medicaid, which have been severe, you know, they came up with a good program. You know, it was the duty of my mother as the last child of 13 in the family to care for my grandmother and grandfather in their latter years. And my grandfather, Fidel Bianchino, had severe dementia and Alzheimer's for 10 years. It was horrible. But she did it, and it cost, I remember, it cost us a lot of money. The new program that's subsidized by Medicaid enables you as a family member or a friend to care for the elderly at home so they don't get sent into a long-term nursing home care unit or, God forbid, a hospital. That's a program we must protect, but that's subsidized by Medicaid. Then when it comes to providing health care, you have these walk-in medical centers in the wealthier areas where if I have a problem, it's not often covered by insurance, but you can go right in off the street. We have to create that same kind of a situation so to entice hospitals to do more of it. Now, where am I going to get the money, right? Everything costs money. I'm not Zoran Mandami. I'm not playing the Wizard of Zoran, where all of a sudden, boom, lift the magic, puff the magic dragon, here comes the money. To be honest, I become mayor on January 1st, 2026. I get sworn in. I got to put the spreadsheet out. I think what a lot of people don't realize is we were living on borrowed time because of COVID money. Reality hit this year. So the Adams administration pretty much stretched all they could out of COVID money. And we're looking at very drastic fiscal times. The state has a $34 billion budget. Trump keeps cutting like a Pac-Man. You know, he's not through, he's coming after nights and next. I hate to compare it to the late 70s, but we had to live under a fiscal control board of bankers and union leaders who pooled their resources to keep us afloat when Ed Koch had just been elected mayor, and he had to make drastic cuts. I hope it doesn't come to that, but there's no way to know until you actually get inside and you look at what we actually have.
And you know, neighborhoods like Southeast Queens are fed up with being ignored. And as you said, as this budget crunch comes, if elected, how would you protect communities like this one?
Well, I'll give you an example where both you and I spent some time. We were discussing it today in New York 1. Ironically, you lived in Ocean Village in Far Rockaway. I had just been married to a young lady, Corinne Drayton, in Brownsville, and we moved to Ocean Village, which was like paradise at that time. And then Peninsula Hospital was there. Now, I got stabbed. I live a bit of a rough life. Luckily, Peninsula Hospital was there. But look at the number of hospitals that have been closed throughout Queens, not just Peninsula Hospital. So if you have a cardiac case, sometimes you have to travel so far. When that police officer was shot and killed on Mott Avenue, outside of that, I forget which telephone store it was, right near the 101, they had to take him all the way to Jamaica Hospital because St. Joseph's doesn't have an intensive unit, or you have to go all the way to Coney Island Hospital. And as I told the Guardian Angels, I gave them a list. If they're ever taking me to Woodkill Hospital, aka Woodhull, Kings County, or Coney Island Hospital, do triage on me in the street. Please don't take me to something. Look, the people work hard in those hospitals, but sometimes they don't have the type of treatment that we need, especially the older people, coronary issues, heart attack issues, diabetes issues, high blood pressure issues. I would suggest to everybody, as you can imagine, I have high blood pressure. They make fun of me because I and my wife, we rescue cats, and then we adopt them out. Put a cat on your shoulder. One time I had 235 over 140. Let's face it, I was going to be looking at the Grim Reaper. That cat, Hope, a calico cat, instinctively jumped on my shoulder, rested. And you know, when my wife checked my high blood pressure, it started to precipitously go down. Another reason that you should have cats in your house, you can tell the president, yeah, I and my wife, we save cats and we're proud of it. And we adopt them out.
Okay, so you have 1 minute for a closing statement to our audience.
I know Southeast Queens well, from Rochdale Village, the co-ops, to the 40s. Spent a lot of time in the area. It is a solid residential community. I've dedicated a lot of time recently to helping residents fight off these lithium-ion battery warehouses. When we got off the Long Island Railroad here and we walked here, we passed the site right across from St. Albans Veterans Hospital. We really don't take care of our veterans, do we? So know that as mayor, the first order that I do is to slow down, demand environmental impact studies, and I will be like a snail, and I guarantee you, these developers will never finish these lithium-ion battery warehouses. They will destroy your community.
Thank you for being here. Curtis Lewa, ladies and gentlemen.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so those are all of our candidates today. We apologize, Zoran Mamdani was not able to join us. But I hope you found all of the candidates to be informative. Again, you know we're about 5 weeks away from the election. I want to bring back up Soleil, who is going to close us out.
Can we give it up again for Ms. Cheryl Wills? To support us is a beautiful thing. We thank you. I do want the organizations to bring, I don't know where they are now. The Deltas, hey, right here. Who I look at this one? We just want to give you a token of appreciation. Okay, I will take it from you. No, it's fine.
We love you, Cheryl. On behalf of Queens Olympic Chapter, Delta Sigma Theta, Sorority Incorporated, and D4 Women in Action. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please.
Oh, I guess you know who these flowers are for, so, okay, yes, I am presenting flowers as well, and I want to present one to you. Soleil, thank you so very much for your hard work. This is her brainchild, everyone. This is Soleil's idea. She wouldn't stop until it happened, so thank you. The other bouquet is for the co-chair, Janice Welch. Denise called us day and night, all kinds of day and night, over and over and over. So thank you for your determination. I don't know where she is. Thank you for your determination and your hard work making this happen. Thank you, everyone who's here, all the sisters and brothers. We really appreciate the community coming out and supporting this event. We need to have more of these, like I said. We have to be organized. We have to do this together. That's the only way they'll understand our message. So we appreciate each and every one. Thank you to all my sisters, the behind-the-scene people, because we have a lot of those. We didn't mention all of those people. Nicole and Tony, we have people behind the scenes who are doing a lot of the work. Monica Pringle, she likes to stay in the background, but she's working hard. And our timekeeper. So we thank everyone again. We'll be in touch. Look for us. This will be on Facebook Live as well as Instagram. New York One. New York One? That's right. New York One. That's right. Hey. So it will be. So you'll look for more.
On Sunday at 10:30. So it'll be featured on New York One and In Focus Sunday, 10:30 a.m. And I do want to acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is Zoran Manzani. We did receive an email from his team that apologized for not being able to attend. He didn't provide a good reason, but at the same time, it was good enough. And he did say that he will provide a Zoom or something with the community, so we'll see if we can coordinate that. We did also say that we are not allowing any representatives from the candidates to speak. We wanted the community to hear directly from the candidates. So if they're not here, it's good. So again, we thank you so much for coming out. I want to thank our affiliates again. I want them to please stand again. Because even though we said it earlier, we could not have had this event without the affiliates. So again, thank you so much. And have a good night and be safe.
Thank you.